Welcome, everybody. ThirdPath Institute is a national nonprofit celebrating our 20th anniversary. And long before others discovered the importance of including men in the work-life integration discussion, or the science of pushing back at overwhelm so we could all work smarter, we were showing people how to do work, family, and leadership differently. Did you know that over 71,000 people checked out our free resources last year, like the live and recorded versions of our Thursday webinars? We're glad you're here today. And as you will quickly discover, today's webinar truly celebrates all that we've learned in the past 20 years. And what a great way to celebrate ThirdPath's 20th anniversary than having Brett Goldblatt join us. Brett's been a long-term board member, somebody I've learned so much from. In fact, the topic today, where we're looking at the importance of taking vacations not only for ourselves, but for our organizations, is something that I can really credit Brett for teaching me all about. So welcome, Brett. Is this something that you're still feeling like you're pretty successful at, taking vacations and actually turning off work, or significantly turning back work, or has it gotten harder over time? What are some things that you've learned around this concept of taking a work-free or working less vacation?
I think taking vacations for me, there are some periods where it's easier and some periods where it's harder. With my job being in the service profession, it really is depending on what's going on. But for the most part, I find it's a skill that I get better at the more that I use it. It really forces me to rely on the people around me to an extent that increases their training and their ability to function independently. It allows me to really connect and sometimes reconnect now that as my kids get a little bit older with my family in a setting that's not just grabbing them in the morning or grabbing them at night. So it's something that is still, a huge value to me and something that I still believe I benefit from, but am still always learning.
Yes, amen to that. I mean, even last year, I had some stuff going on with elder care and other stuff, and it's sometimes harder, as you said, either because of work or life, to kind of completely turn off on vacation. But like, as Brett also said, it's the intention of saying, hey, this is good for me, this is good for my family, good for my workplace, that I think then keeps us striving for that goal, holding the bar high. And in general, what we've learned together as a board at ThirdPath, as a ThirdPath community, is that learning how to set this goal of an integrated life where you have time for work and time for your life outside of work, that integrated approach is a process, not a solution. So Brett's already alluded that even the idea of doing that concept of turning off work on vacation and then coming back to work, that's kind of applying the concept of integration, stepping away from work and getting back to work. And as Brett said, it's a process. It's something we keep on learning about. What we're going to focus on today is how we can make some changes at work so we can be more successful at achieving that goal of turning off work on vacation or significantly cutting back at work on vacation. And to do that, we're going to have a couple of other people join us. We have this great person, Judy Hughes, who will be sharing her story and how she's applied these ideas in her own life with her family. And at the close of the call, we have Marcello Russo calling in from Italy. He wrote a wonderful HBR piece talking about the importance of people living whole lives. And so I really wanted to have him talk about, where does change begin? Let's say you work in a workplace where everybody works all the time and even on vacations. How do we make change happen even in those places? So before we get to anybody else, Brett, I have this little visual that's supposed to help us think about this concept. Let me tell you a little bit about what I have on the visual and then see what you think about this, Brett. What I'm trying to talk about is, over the past 20 years, ThirdPath has really learned some people work in supportive workplaces and they really encourage people to turn off work on vacation. And some people work in what I call work-first workplaces, where you have to prove yourself every day, every week, every month, every year, and you need to put work first in order to be considered for a promotion. I'd argue probably, Brett, yours is more of the work-first culture, maybe in parts of your organization the other. And what we're going to talk about is how that can influence us as we think about how to turn off work on vacation. I want to put up one other picture, and then I want to get your thoughts, Brett. But it's not just what our organizations are showing us. It's also what our own orientation is. So when I first met Brett, even though he might be working in what I would consider kind of a work-first work culture, he had a very clear orientation of wanting to live an integrated life. In fact, even before having a child, he was committed to having work be an important part of his life, but not all of his life. And so what we're going to talk about today is how those two things together, the culture you work in and your own particular orientation, influences your outcome around how you approach work in a way where you can turn it off and enjoy your vacation. So Brett, does some of this sound familiar? What's your experience been around this? What advice do you have?
Well, for me, it all starts from, figuring out what is actually driving a person to work during vacation. Um, for some, it's because it's required or the person has a toxic boss. That's often something that's difficult to deal with. Oftentimes, it's because the individual believes it's required, and sometimes that's a result of bad modeling from people around them and other higher up people in the organization. Also, I notice a lot of people do it out of ego, the urge to be irreplaceable and non-fungible. And then some people even use it as an escape from family. So the first point is to really understand that vacations have value. And once you accept and really understand that vacations have value, it's treating vacations as if they're important, because they are. And so at the end of the day, for me, it's really about finding a way to do your job, my job, in a sustainable way. I know that if I were to go through my job without taking any breaks, without any vacations, without really being able to unplug, that wouldn't be sustainable. And I'd eventually self-select out and I'd go do something else. So finding a way to do my job in a sustainable way has been sort of a key driver to all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you guys want listeners today some information about how Brett really figured this out, we have a great article on our website that you can download for free that he helped us co-author about this very straightforward way of planning for a vacation, thinking ahead about maybe when's your less busy period, taking your vacation during that time, working with those around you to kind of coordinate what's going to happen when you're away, what to do if there's an emergency, and then actually building in some quiet time before and after vacation so you can, really get out the door, enjoy your vacation, and come back and still not feel overwhelmed by the return. One of the things I've really learned, already, you're right on target, that you need to kind of value the treating a vacation as important. You've been doing this for a number of years, Brett. Here's the secret bonus point. So regardless of which workplace you work in, you can really kind of have this mental state of, I think vacations are important. I want them to happen. What we learned from Brett and from others is that, when you get somebody like Brett practicing this throughout his career, he then becomes a different kind of leader who really supports other people to think this way and models something different. Are you seeing that around you, Brett, that you've kind of modeled something different? And are you seeing the impact of that around the people around you?
I think so. Part of taking vacations is, not just supporting the people around you when they're taking their vacations, which I try really hard to do. And let's start with that. Once you start supporting the people around you, particularly the people that work for you when they're on vacation, which means, frankly, there's more work for me when they're on vacation, then they start supporting you when you're on vacation and doing everything they can to make sure that, you have the space to really enjoy vacation and unplug and take a break. So it almost self-perpetuates. As I start doing it for others, others start doing it for me, and they're also doing it for other people within the organization as well.
Yeah.
For some people, it's tricky. I see people go on vacation, and it's really hard for them to allow others to support them. It's it's essentially the act of receiving a gift. A lot of people are not very good at receiving a gift, but that is a gift, allowing others to support you while you're on vacation, and being able to accept that gift and also give it just as willingly is critical. But yes, I am seeing it start to broaden beyond me and the people that are my direct reports.
Yeah, yeah. And you're getting at this interesting juxtaposition. If we want to live in a world where we can really have time for our lives, first we have to value our lives outside of work in the same way we value work. But there might be some stuff we need to do internally to get the right headset on and to approach things well. And that's the truth about an integrated approach. It's a little bit about your workplace, but it's a little about you too. So Brett had mentioned to me these kind of 4 areas he was talking about that can get in the way of somebody really learning how to turn off work on vacation. And I really liked that he talked about this because, some people are like, I just can't turn off work. Here's Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank who says he expects all of his employees to respond to him when he's on vacation. What do you think's going on with Kevin? A little bit of ego? How do you help people? If you have a boss, if you have an employee who's having a hard time turning off work, or a boss who's not thinking the right way, any advice about how to help in that situation, Brett, around kind of managing up or around you to take a vacation?
Yeah, so taking vacations is a lot of work before and after. So I think it takes a lot of managing, that toxic personality that's near you. And that means, planning it out, giving them lots of notice, and getting as much done as possible before the vacation to give little room for that toxic individual to invade the vacation when you're trying to have it. So I just think it just takes more work because there's going to be less ability for that to rely on that toxic person while you're on vacation. So it takes more
Yeah,
preparation before and more catch up after.
yeah, yeah, yes. And just so you know, like one of the ways that we've learned through the different leaders we work with, if you work in a workplace where the idea of you completely disconnecting for a week just seems like an impossibility, there is the option of saying, look, I'm going to check email once a day at this time. My administrative person knows that I'm going to do that, or such and such person knows that I'm going to do that. There is a way to get a hold of me. You can think ahead about how to kind of manage communication, even in a workplace that's really having a hard time imagining you disconnecting for the whole week. Again, check out that article on our website. It's a really good article. Here's the super bonus point. What we've learned is that when people start thinking this way, the way that Brett has in his entire career, they learn some really important skills. And that these skills end up being really important for all aspects of an integrated life. So what I'm trying to say is the sooner you learn how to start turning off work on vacation and planning to do so and enjoying your vacations, you're going to also be developing important skills that help you manage having kids, elder care, all kinds of stuff around balancing work and your life outside of work. Did we know that when we were first talking about the importance of vacations, Brett and I? No. But what we've seen working together for a number of years now is that these integration skills can start by simply taking a vacation and learning how to turn off work on vacation. So I've listed some of these skills here. Any of these feel like there's especially been important to you as you've lived this integrated life, Brett, or planned for your vacation, or any thoughts about these skills in particular?
Boundaries is the one that always jumps out at me most. It's,
Yeah.
so part of taking a vacation, part of working in any high pressure job is knowing that you need to be flexible. If an emergency comes up, an emergency comes up. That's true if it comes up in the home with births, deaths, marriages, etc. And it's just as true if it comes up at work. And the problem I see people having is over defining or over including things as emergencies. Anything that's happening at work does not constitute emergency. I mean, as an example, I maybe will have 2 or 3 emergencies a year. And if they happen to coincide with a vacation, then I need to deal with them while I'm on vacation. So that, to me, redefining what really constitutes an emergency and what really constitutes flexibility is critical. And the only way to do that is by setting these personal boundaries.
Yeah, yeah,
Planning, prioritizing, anticipating the future, that's all preparation for the vacation. Very important to having a vacation. If you start to get lazy right before vacation, like my kids do right before, spring break and winter break, you're not going to be in a good position to take a good vacation, and you will be working more than you would like.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful, wonderful. And this concept of triple win that we have on the screen, that's the idea that you're looking for an answer of when to take your vacation, how to turn off work in a way that's going to be good for you, good for the work you do, and good for the people you work with. I have a funny story about boundary setting. My husband had a hard time thinking he could turn off work on vacation. Somewhat maybe ego, I don't know. He's a lovely guy, not a big ego. And I said to him, well, how about we set it up where if you're needed, they can contact people can contact me on my cell phone, because nobody ever contacts me. So we set it up so that if he was needed over that first week, he turned off work that whole week, they could contact me. And sure enough, the phone never rang for him being needed at work. So partly it was just having to learn that experience. Hey, they will be okay without me. And we kind of came up with a simple plan to help him learn that experience. And now he's a real believer. Turning off on work on vacation is super important to him. If that's not exciting enough, what we've also learned is that you just keep on developing these skills. So, Brett started out as a lawyer. Now he's also a partner. And what we can really see is that some of those skills he learned early in his career of saying, I want to do work well, but also have time for my life, time for vacations, helped him learn some really important skills now as a leader. And so he can work with his team to think about how to support them, when to take vacations that work best for the whole team. We can talk more about this later in the call, but there really is this process of committing to integration that keeps on helping us get smarter and smarter around how to do work and create time for our lives outside of work. Brett, there might be one more thing you want to say about your experiences around vacations before we hear how Judy's applied some of these ideas to her life.
Yeah, I guess the last thing that I would say is it's all about, intentions, setting the intention, having that intention become a habit, having that habit become a trait. So you start by forming the intention to value vacations and unplug during vacation. You make that intention over and over again. That intention eventually becomes your habit. And then that habit eventually becomes your trait. It becomes who you are and how you interact with the world and the different people in your organization. So you can change anything about yourself. It's just about intentions and forming intentions, turning those into habits, and eventually turning those into traits.
Yeah, yes. And again, think back to that circle about learning these skills. You just keep on getting smarter. Some things happen that make you stumble, and then you learn from those things and get back to that intention. Wonderful. Brett, I can't thank you enough for all that you have done for ThirdPath over these years. We've learned so much together. We will hear from Brett again at the end of the call, but Judy, you're up next. And I want to tell a little bit about Judy first, and then she'll share some of her story. We have a community of people we call our integrated life advocates. They're career counselors, couples counselors, work-life coaches, and other passionate people excited about making change around these issues. This April 30th, we're going to have an ILA forum here in Philadelphia. So if you're excited about this concept, come join us. Judy's been one of our most wonderful ILAs. We have her run something called our OMG groups, Overwhelm Mitigation Groups. And in the process of teaching these integration skills through this group, she's been putting those ideas into practice in her own life. I remember getting an email from her, or maybe it was on a phone call, and she was talking about her first vacation. This was a few years ago, where she really turned off work, and she was so happy to do so. Judy, what was the road you took to learn about the value of turning off work on vacation, and what are some tips you learned? We're so glad you're here.
Oh, thank you, Jessica. And it was great listening to Brett as well, because it made me think about, why did I make the choices that I made? And I'm still getting some ahas. So I appreciate that insight. But my husband and I both work full time, and I think we treated we have time off. We're very, fortunate to have paid time off, but we treated it like a commodity to be saved and for a rainy day when we really needed it. When we had our children were small, we would take, long weekends here and there. And as, my career progressed and responsibilities became more and more, I found that, yeah, I guess I thought, oh, there's going to be time to take vacation. And then it seemed like something always came up and I wasn't intentional and I didn't plan ahead. And then I found myself chasing after, I would be maxed out on my vacation, didn't even use it. And I would have to take a day here and there just so I would continue accruing. And I thought to myself, and it was right around the time I met you, Jessica. And I was thinking to myself, what is going on? When we did take our vacation time, I would work basically the equivalent of an extra day to prepare myself to go out on vacation. When I came back, there was work waiting. And while I was on my vacation, we would jam pack it full of things because we took them very infrequently. So we were exhausted and then came back to a house full of chores. And I thought, well, that was fun. Oh my gosh, look what we have now. Right? So it's like I need a vacation for my vacation. And you're right. There was, I think some of the aha came from, the teacher becomes the student. When I started doing more of the integrated life advocacy work and the OMG groups, I listened to myself and I said, well, hang on, what's going on? And it was when my niece had her graduation for high school. And we were going to go, the stars aligned, and we said, let's make this into a family vacation. And for the first time in, I can remember years, we took 10 days off, 10 days. It was in the Caribbean. And so I took my work phone with me, and I put it in a plastic baggie because we were at the beach half the time. And I actually didn't take my phone out, not once. I told my leader, if you need me, I've got my personal cell. And just like, you were mentioning with your husband, nobody called.
Yeah.
We were able to connect. Our family had time together, uninterrupted, detached. I remember, my son was younger. He said to me one time, Mom, do they make you take your laptop home? I was like, wow, what a trick question that is, right? Did they make me? What's making me take it home? So that was like our impetus to say, okay, we need to be more intentional to make the time to do this so we can create what we want. We started including our kids in the planning process for vacations. They had bucket lists of things that they wanted to do. And some of our learnings, some of the learnings I had is that I would block time before my vacation and block time after my vacation to, make the time for the things that were really important that had to be done. And catch up on the things I had to, instead of I walk back into a day full of meetings and your head spinning, trying to get your mind wrapped around, what's really happening. So that has really helped me sort of transition to and from vacation time. And then the other is I've shared with my leader, who is very open to new ideas. And I said, we don't really have any group norms. We always say, I'm on vacation, call my cell if it's an emergency. But what constitutes an emergency, and do they really need to call me? So we talked about, clarifying, or am I really going to be checking my messages while I'm out, even if it's for a day, or is it truly, please connect with this other person, and otherwise I'll get to you when I come back on this date. And so those group norms, and even just talking about it or anticipating as a team things that might pop up, just helped all of us really think about the work more strategically and efficiently.
Yeah. Amen.
And listening to Brett earlier, I really think that I would check my phone or not take these vacations because it was like this work ethic I grew up with of, I'm capable, I can do this, people can count on me, I'm loyal. But then I realize I'm still loyal if I take a couple days off, and I'm better for it. My family's better for it. My daughter is 16. I started counting down the summers and the winter breaks, and I'm proud to say that this next Friday we're going on a 10-day trip to Europe, which has been on our bucket list since the kids were little. Because my daughter, when she was little, asked, when are we going to go? When are we going to go? I'm like, oh, we'll go. And she said, when? I said, oh, don't worry, by the time you're 16. Well, guess what? She's 16. And we're going, and we're so excited, and we're going to have family time, and we're going to make memories. And my work is just fine with it because I've prepared them and we've discussed it, and we're working together to get anything done that needs to happen as a team.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Judy, you've said so many priceless things. Let me just start with the last one first. Make memories. You don't know it. It's so hard to know. In a little bit, we're going to hear from Marcello, and he's got a little baby at home. And it's so hard to know when you're in that new parenting stage, even with, he's got a little older one too, that your kids are going to get older. And then in Judy's stage, it's so hard to know that they're not going to be there one day. They're just going to grow up, go off to wherever they're going to go off to. And it's just so hard to know it when you're immersed in parenting, that there's going to be a time when they're not living under your roof. But what's going to happen is you've made these memories together, and you are going to always remember, that amazing 10-day vacation when you first learned to turn off your phone. You're going to totally remember this Europe vacation. These are things that your kids, your whole family is going to really refer back to forever and ever. There's one other thing that you're doing there, Judy, that's just outstanding. Think about the role modeling that you're now doing for your kids, so that when they become workers, they now will know, I can be committed and take a vacation. There's more I want to say, but you might want to say something else, Judy, before I go on and applaud even more of what you said. Anything else you want to say before I go on?
I guess the one thing I would add is I listened to Michelle Obama do a video the other day, and she said something that just sort of reminded me of what we're doing here. Is she said, she's talking about really big worldwide work that she's doing, and people ask her, how do you do it? And she said, it's incremental. Change is incremental. I think Brett, underscored that too, but it's just take the small wins. They're all wins.
Yeah. In fact, one of the things we've learned, if you're listening in today and saying, oh my gosh, I want to do this, but 10 days, I can't do that. Start with a long weekend. Jeff and I learned that even when things were kind of crazy busy, we both own our own businesses. Now it's, obviously more than a business, it's a national nonprofit, but you can, there's a little background noise from somebody maybe moving around. So just thought, I'll try to see if I can see who it is. So think about just a long weekend. Maybe decide, hey, we're going to leave on a Thursday morning or a Wednesday night, and we won't be back until, Monday. And we're going to have this long weekend where we, completely turn off work and do something fun. You can start incrementally and then work your way up to a longer period of time. The other two things I wanted to underscore in what Judy was talking about, what a great concept, creating some group norms around vacations. I had a fascinating conversation with one of the leaders we work with, who totally believes in people turning off work on vacation, but then realized that some of his employees hadn't really heard that message, and they still felt like they had to be prove their dedication by being available for some of their clients while they were on vacation. And he didn't actually communicate that. They had just brought that assumption to their job. So creating some group norms for the whole team to understand, hey, if we really want to turn off work on vacation, how can we support each other to do that? That's a great one. The last thing I heard Judy say was this concept of blocking off time before or after vacation. Again, go check out that vacation checklist. I literally pull it out and look at our vacation checklist before I'm getting ready for a vacation. It gives you great ideas about how to think about how to turn off work so you have time for life. I'm going to skip to 2 slides ahead. So Judy, did you notice vacations changing as your kids were versus when they were little versus today? And what changed about vacations?
Certainly it's a different type of vacation now that my kids are both teenagers, where they have longer attention spans. They can be involved in the planning process, and they have more endurance for things. When they were younger, if we didn't leave the house, on a weekend and we were home all weekend when the kids were toddlers, you want to pull your hair out. It had to be something, action oriented and very physical. And so every weekend we had to do something, whereas now the kids can sit and go to a museum with us, or we can do something slow paced and relaxing, or hiking and whitewater rafting. So certainly it's evolved with their maturity and their input.
Yeah. And Brett might say this towards the end of the call when I have everybody say their last words, but Brett was the one who taught me that you'll see on the vacation checklist that different vacations are different. So my husband reminded me when we were on vacation with our little ones that the vacation was more about them than it was necessarily a vacation for us. Hence, Jeff and I learned how to take a weekend, just the two of us, away. So we'd have the family vacation when the kids were little, but also a little bit of time, just the two of us away, as a way to really recharge as a couple too. All right, there's more we could say. There might be one last thought you want to share, Judy, before we talk to Marcello and start thinking about big picture. Where does change begin? We are in a world where more and more people think that they can't disconnect on vacations. Where did that come from, and how do we push back at that? Before we go there, Judy, any last thoughts you want to share?
Oh, no, I'm good, Jessica. Thank you.
Okay, great. Marcello, I am so glad you're here, all the way from Italy.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, yeah, and you've been listening in. I bet you have some thoughts just from listening in, but I do want to encourage people to go ahead and look for Marcello's article in HBR. It's a great article where he looked at over 400 Italian workers and unfortunately saw that they face many of the same things workers here in the US face, unsupportive work cultures. And so the idea of really kind of having time for your life outside of work looks like it might also be a challenge in Italy as it is here in the US. Marcello, you've been listening in. What are some thoughts that come to your mind about this concept of turning off work, having a life? What would you like to add?
First of all, let me add that the article on HBR was written by me and my co-author and friend Gabriele Morandin from Italy as well. That was very interesting conversation, and thank you very much, Brett and Judy, for sharing your thoughts. Where do the change begins? I think that there might be two levels of changes, in my opinion. One is a more individual change, and the other is more about the organization we work in. I think about the individual change, both you and Brad have mentioned these different attitudes that we should generally have towards vacation and more generally towards leisure or free time or non-working time. Because I guess for many of us, and especially in Italy, many people consider the free time as a waste of time, as an unproductive time. And everything, as human beings, everything we consider unproductive, we tend to reduce. And so that's why many people in the workplace tend to, my opinion, I've seen many people try to fill their agenda as maximum as they can in order to feel busy, in order to reduce the unproductive time. So I think a first change can happen individual level by having a different interpretation of our non-working hours, which should be a time for resting, a time for cultivating our passions, our leisure activities, a time for staying with our family, with our friends, or just staying alone without doing nothing, because that is a moment where most of our ideas develop in our mind, most of our interests are cultivated. And I really believe that is an important thing. We have been not created just to work, and work, but we have been created also to have multiple activities and multiple interests. And that something I see often, very often with the students at university in Italy, that many of those students already have a schedule like a corporate CEO with no time for anything else than they do associations, they study, they have project works. They seem to be already very busy at a young age, and they will continue to do that in the workplace. So I really think we need to probably reframe our agenda in our life to in order to not be scared to have free time, because that's very important for all of us. The other point, which is very important in my opinion, is in our organizations there should be a cultural change. We cannot pretend that change, in my opinion, happens from the bottom of the company, but we should hope and pretend that the change might come in the top management team with a different consideration of employees' non-working activities as being important and to be respected as well as the work commitments. Because even if we imagine you are an employee, suppose you're an employee and you look for flexible time or smart working from home, or you want to go earlier home from the office to cultivate your hobbies, and then those behaviors are then stigmatized or penalized in the workplace. How can we expect that people continue to do so? So I think that a change should really happen in our managers in the way they consider our life in general, because it might be really important and for them to be totally concentrated on the workplace. But in my opinion, the mistake we do very often that those people also prevent their collaborators to be as committed to work as they are or as available to work as they are without even imagining they can have a life or other interests.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And so it kind of becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. In fact, you could argue the example you gave, you have these MBA students who are, working all the time, who then go into jobs and they're rewarded for working all the times because they have bosses who work all the time. And so this becomes this self-reinforcing cycle of a culture that kind of values work over leisure. I think what's scary for me to hear, and again, I'm so sorry for kind of the generalization here, but our fantasy is that Italians of all people have really enjoyed leisure. Is this something that you've seen change over time, and what do you think
I don't know.
has
I don't know. I
contributed to
think
it?
our work culture is very close to the American one.
Yeah.
We have, especially people who are in their career path, and so many of the people I know work all the time and have
Mhm.
time available for themselves and the family just in the weekend. It is this strange consideration that many of us are having, many people in Italy, that it's okay to work all the time, especially if you are a man. There are also gender stereotypes on this issue.
Yep.
But and then you spend the entire weekend with your kids, underestimating the importance to be with the kids in the weekly days where you
Yep.
don't do nothing special, but you're just staying with them and
Yep.
contribute to their development, and you play with them. That's very important.
Yeah, yeah. No, and back to that thing you were talking about around creative ideas, all of us on this call, I'm sure have had this experience because we have this integrated mindset that in those times when we're off playing with our kids at the playground or taking a walk in the park, even if you're not trying to think about work, once in a while an idea will pop into your head that's the exact answer you were looking for. And there's just lots and lots of research that shows us grinding away at work doesn't always create the most creative approach. And it's that space away from a problem that often helps us think in a more creative way. You might want to share one more thought about that, and then I want to put up another slide.
I think the problem that is, I'm 36. I have two daughters, and I'm director of the global MBA at Bologna Business School in Italy. And that's pretty interesting because you have most of your time of your life where the most important time of your life when you have this both person, family and professional, very high important role or responsibilities. So that is a little bit difficult for many contemporary employees. The
Yeah,
fact to live simultaneously the best moment of your life and the best moment of your career at the same time.
yeah,
That's really hard because in the future, of course, it will be much easier for me when the daughters won't be anymore at home to be more concentrated on the workplace. But I need to be present now. But also my workplace requires most of my attentions now.
yeah,
Sometimes organizations forget about this, and they
yes,
might always believe that you might, I don't know, go back and in the time you have lost with your family later. But that's impossible, in my opinion. And
yes,
very important, I accepted the role as the director of the global MBA also to try to give an example to the students, because we discussed about those topics, that you can do an important role and simultaneously try to ensure presence and support to your family. My
yeah,
daughters need, my wife needed, and it's important for me. I could not be as much creative as I am in my work without staying every day and playing with my daughters every day and
yeah,
participating in very daily activities of the family functioning. I mean, cleaning or helping my wife or in cooking or preparing the table. Those are daily simple activities, but refresh my mind in a way that I could not imagine myself working all the time.
yes, yes. Refresh your mind. That is a beautiful way of describing it because that's exactly right. And again, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but an integrated approach, an approach where we have work and something else in our life, I really believe helps us become smarter employees. And if we take it back to that concept of vacations, the reasons why we could take a vacation is because we created a team around us at work to think about things, and we were there for each other. And that's healthy for organizations too. We need to be seen as part of a team for the best work to be produced. So where does change begin? And one of the things we really feel like happens at ThirdPath is that the more you are clear yourself, you and your partner at home about what your goals are, the more you can then get creative about how to map this out. The simple step of turning off work on vacation, working together at home, and making a plan about how you can do that will really help you get smarter and perhaps make some change around you. Just like Judy now has talked to her boss about, what could our group norms be to support all of us to have time for our vacations and turn off work, have time for our lives. So where I want to go next, because it's, that I knew this was going to be a call where it just went way too fast, is to kind of get, circle it back to everybody, first with Marcello. So we have these crazy bosses out there, a lot like Kevin O'Leary. How do we make change around this? What should we do personally, as an employee, as a manager? How do we get the top to start thinking differently about this? I know it's a big question, but do you have any advice, Marcello, about where change can begin? What should we do if we are in a situation where we're not really seeing eye to eye with the people around us? Any thoughts, Marcello?
Well, I think that role modeling might be very effective in this case. I think we should have
Yes.
a great number of successful leaders who also have successful personal lives, and discussing about these successful stories can help even the most workaholic manager to consider that maybe there are alternative ways of managing the people. Everybody knows now that people love and are interested in the work-life balance, but in some cases some managers don't think this is relevant, and also I think there are managers and there are companies starting to talk about a more not growing at all costs, but having a sort of gentle growing in terms of the profit, because
Yes.
also having more sustainable goals, as also Brad has mentioned at the very beginning, it's important. Not only sustainable personal goal, but also sustainable goals in terms of profit and growth of the company. Because
Yes.
surely if we have too extreme profit goals, we will need most of the resources from our employees, rather than
Yes.
if we have more sustainable personal, but also especially organizational goals, we might have more um, rhythms of working life that are more respectful of the people life.
Yes. And tell me if you agree with the following, Marcello. It's not even just a vertical line of trade-off between a goal of growth and sustainability, because I think what I've seen is in some of these organizations that are focused on, just in crazy goals of growth, there are costs that they underestimate. The cost of
Absolutely.
turnover, the cost of, it takes a while to develop a good team and have a manager have time to develop a good team. So I think that they think they're growing and it's just profit, but actually some of these growth goals actually create some problems. So it sounds like you agree too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think most of the time, one of the common mistake managers do is to believe that their collaborators, and I want to use this word rather than employees or subordinates,
Yeah.
collaborators have the same level as motivation and engagement in the workplace as they do. And it's not true, because people have their own career goals and their personal goals, and they don't necessarily fit with the one of their bosses or the one of their organization. So that's
Yeah.
very important. We are aware of that not everybody in the company might have the same level of commitment and I do as a manager. And it's important to also be respectful of other people's choices, because that
Yeah.
is I think respect is nice. It's probably the good word we should use more often.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. So I'm going to check in with Judy. Any advice about now that you've kind of learned, you've gotten to the other side, you see the value of turning off work, you're getting that milestone, 16-year-old milestone of going to Europe. Any advice you have to people who might be struggling to put these ideas into place? And then I'll end with Brett with any suggestions that you might have. Judy, any suggestion to our listeners today?
Well, I think one thing that I came to the realization is this is not only for my family, but it's also for me. So I've learned to take what I like to call mental health days
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
take a day and detach, because
having the whole house to myself for a day is so luxurious.
Yes.
But for me, the learning is I could be more, taking a vacation or a day off or a long weekend helped me be more present, period, with my family, more present at work, helped me be more focused overall in my life. So taking care of yourself in that way helps you take care of all the other responsibilities that we have. So, it's an investment and it takes
Yes.
intentionality. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. Presence. That's, I think I recently took about 11 days off with just Jeffrey. My kids are all grown, and we were really able to be present on vacation. And when I came back, I really needed that time to get away and recharge and recalibrate. And I came back and I can tell my presence is better now after vacation too. Hey, Brett, any last thoughts about the importance of these skills, about taking time off for yourself, for your family? Tell us your last thought.
Sure. I guess I'll quote the famous philosopher Nike and say, just do it. Until you try it, you're not going to really understand how to do it. You're not going to be able to get better at it. So just do it. Just try it. You'll get better at it as you do it. You're not going to do it perfectly the first time, but your life will get measurably better as you start developing these skills and taking these breaks.
Yeah. In fact, I skipped over a couple of slides because we're running out of time, and that was exactly what the slides were talking about. It is a process that you can keep on practicing. I've been doing it for, my daughter's 29 years old, and I've been doing it for a long time, and every year I learn something new about this kind of approach where you really value your work, but you value your life and how to make time and energy for both of those things. Hey, for those of you listening in today, we do have a live Q&A all year long. We're also giving away a free booklet. You see it up there in the corner. So if you stick around, you can enter the lottery for that free booklet. It's a chance to ask Brett, Judy, or Marcello some questions. It's one of the fun parts of having a live webinar. So please stick around and be part of the Q&A. What's coming up next is another amazing webinar in January with one of my favorite authors, Peter Senge. He's written about this concept of how that systems approach to change, what Marcello was talking about. It's a little bit about what the individual needs to do. It's a little bit about what the organization needs to do. And we're really going to be looking at this problem that I think has become increasingly a problem here in the US, but it sounds like it's a problem everywhere, where our jobs are making us burn out, and how do we push back at that? Why? What kind of world do we really want to create? So tune in next month, check out our free resources, and thanks for joining us today. What a wonderful webinar. Thank you, everybody.